Lyra wandered slowly through the dark, polluted streets of Vorthis, her eyes scanning for anything useful. The air was heavy and smelled of chemicals, garbage, and despair. Everywhere around her were signs of neglect, broken buildings, dirty roads, and the tired faces of aliens who had given up hope. Lyra herself felt she belonged here. She was small, thin, and covered with dirt from head to toe. Her hair, once a bright shade of blue, was tangled and faded from lack of care. Her clothes were torn, and her shoes were nearly falling apart. She had learned long ago that being clean didn't matter if you had nowhere to go and no one cared about you. She moved quietly, careful to avoid the gangs of thieves who roamed the streets at night, looking for anyone weaker than themselves to rob. Lyra had been robbed many times before. Each time, she had felt even more worthless than before. She remembered how the last group laughed at her when she begged them to leave her something to eat. They had pushed her into a puddle, mocked her weakness, and left her feeling completely empty. Tonight, her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she had not eaten in nearly 2 days. Her strength was fading fast, and she knew she needed to find something quickly or risk collapsing in the street. She bent down to search through a pile of garbage, hoping to find some scraps of food. Her fingers moved through the dirty mess, pushing aside useless items like broken glass, old papers, and bits of plastic. Suddenly, Lyra felt a sharp pain in her hand. She gasped and pulled her hand back quickly, noticing blood dripping from a fresh cut. Tears filled her eyes, not just from pain but also from the frustration of her situation. "I'm dirty. I'm worthless," she whispered softly. Feeling the words deep inside her heart. She wrapped her bleeding hand in a scrap of cloth she found nearby and slowly stood up, feeling dizzy and tired. The world around her seemed even darker and lonelier now. She took a few shaky steps forward, heading toward an alley she hoped would provide some shelter for the night. As Lyra entered the narrow, shadowed alley, her legs finally gave out. She slumped down onto the cold, damp ground and leaned against the rough wall. Tears fell quietly down her dirty cheeks, mixing with the grime on her face. She felt hopeless, forgotten, and unloved. It was at this moment, at her very lowest, that she heard footsteps approaching. Fear immediately filled her. Was it another group of thieves? Would they take what little she had left? She tried to stand, but her weak body refused to move. Lyra closed her eyes tightly, waiting for the pain she was sure was coming. But instead of harsh words or painful blows, Lyra heard a gentle voice. "Hey, there, are you okay?" Slowly, hesitantly, she opened her eyes. Standing before her was someone she had never seen before. A human male, dressed in clean clothes with a look of concern on his face. His eyes were kind, his voice gentle. "Please," Lyra whispered, her voice shaking, "leave me alone. I'm dirty. I'm worthless." The human knelt beside her, ignoring the dirt and smell that made others turn away. "You're not worthless," he said softly, his eyes full of compassion. "My name is Ethan. Let me help you." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. "Why would you help me?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you need help," Ethan replied simply. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small first aid kit. Carefully, gently, he cleaned her cut hand and bandaged it. "See?" he said softly, giving her a reassuring smile. "Better already." Lyra looked at her hand, now clean and properly cared for. Something inside her stirred. A small, fragile feeling of hope began to grow within her. Ethan helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as she stood. "Come with me," he said gently. "We have food and a safe place. You don't have to be alone anymore." Lyra hesitated, her fear and shame still strong. But when she looked into Ethan's kind eyes, she saw sincerity and warmth. Taking a deep breath, she nodded slowly. As Ethan carefully guided her out of the alley. Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. That maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely worthless after all. Ethan led Lyra through the winding streets carefully, always watching to ensure no one approached or threatened her. The night was quiet, and the only sounds were their footsteps echoing softly against the cracked pavement. Lyra's heart raced with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She had never trusted anyone before, let alone someone from another species. Yet, something about Ethan made her feel safe. When they reached the human base, Lyra was amazed by what she saw. It was nothing like the dirty and broken world she had always known. The building was clean, bright, and welcoming. Lights shone gently, not harsh and flickering like those in the streets. Ethan opened the door and guided her inside. Warmth washed over Lyra, and she shivered slightly from the sudden change in temperature. Ethan quickly found a chair and helped her sit. "Rest here," he said kindly. "I'll bring you something to eat." Lyra watched him disappear down a corridor, then looked around the room. It was simple yet comfortable, with clean chairs, tables, and pictures on the walls showing places she had never imagined existed. Her eyes widened in wonder. Could this really be the same world she had known all her life? When Ethan returned, he carried a tray with hot soup, bread, and water. He placed it gently in front of her and smiled warmly. "Eat slowly," he said. "Your stomach isn't used to food." Lyra hesitated, glancing at him cautiously. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would anyone care for someone like me?" Ethan sat beside her and looked directly into her eyes. "Because everyone deserves care and kindness, no matter who they are or where they come from. You're no different." Lyra lowered her eyes, feeling. Tears began to form again. She had never heard such words before. She took a slow sip of the soup, and its warmth spread through her body, comforting her deeply. She felt the taste and texture, rich and soothing, filling a void inside her she hadn't even realized existed. After eating, Lyra began to feel sleepy, her eyes heavy from exhaustion. Ethan noticed and gently guided her to a small room nearby. It had a bed covered with clean blankets, something Lyra had never experienced. She hesitated, unsure if it was really for her. "It's yours," Ethan reassured her softly. "You can rest safely here." Lyra lay down slowly, marveling at the softness beneath her. She had only known the hard ground or rough floors. As Ethan adjusted the blankets around her, she whispered, "Thank you," her voice full of emotion. He smiled warmly and nodded. "Sleep well, Lyra. You're safe now." Lyra drifted into a deep sleep, feeling secure for the first time in her life. Dreams gently filled her mind images of kindness, warmth, and comfort. When she awoke the next morning, she felt more rested than ever before. Opening her eyes, she saw Ethan nearby, busy arranging things in the room. He noticed her waking up and smiled warmly again. "Good morning," he said gently. "How do you feel?" Lyra sat up slowly, still amazed by the softness of the bed beneath her. "Better," she whispered, her voice full of genuine surprise. "Good," Ethan replied, offering her fresh clothes. "There's a bathroom right through that door. You can clean yourself up if you'd like." Lyra took the clothes carefully, feeling slightly shy. She had never had clean clothes or privacy to bathe properly. She stepped into the small room and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Dirt, bruises, and the harsh memories of her past stared back at her. With determination, she washed herself, the water washing away more than just dirt. It was as if she was washing away some of her painful past. Emerging from the bathroom clean and dressed, Lyra saw Ethan waiting patiently. He smiled brightly when he saw her. "You look much better," he said warmly. She felt her cheeks grow warm, realizing she had never felt such a simple joy before. Ethan gestured toward a table with breakfast waiting, encouraging her to sit and eat again. As she did, he sat across from her, quietly supportive. "What happens now?" Lyra asked softly, still uncertain about her future. "Now, we help you get stronger," Ethan replied confidently. "And when you're ready, we'll find a way for you to live freely and safely." Lyra felt hope blossoming deep within her chest, stronger and brighter than ever. She began to understand that her life might truly change for the better. For the first time, she felt value not as something dirty or worthless, but as someone who truly mattered. Days passed quickly for Lyra at the human base. Each day brought new experiences and discoveries. Ethan and the others treated her with kindness and patience, teaching her things she had never imagined possible. She learned basic skills like reading and writing, something she had always thought was meant only for others. Lyra particularly enjoyed the mornings. She and Ethan would walk through the peaceful grounds around the base, talking softly and observing nature. Ethan taught her about plants, animals, and how life on Earth differed from life on Vorthis. She listened with wonder, amazed at another world could be so beautiful and full of hope. As she gained strength, Lyra also began helping around the base. She worked in the small garden, planting seeds and watching them slowly grow into healthy plants. Each new sprout seemed like a promise of a brighter future. The humans praised her work, encouraging her with kind words and friendly smiles. Lyra began feeling a sense of pride she had never known before. One afternoon, Ethan sat with Lyra under the shade of a large tree. "You're doing incredibly well," he told her gently. "Everyone is proud of you." She looked down shyly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "I never thought anyone would say that about me," she admitted softly. "You deserve it," Ethan said seriously. "You work hard, and you've shown everyone how strong you really are." Just then, a voice called from across the yard. It was Claire, another human who worked closely with Ethan. "Ethan, can I speak to you for a moment?" Ethan stood and smiled reassuringly at Lyra. "I'll be right back." Lyra watched him walk away, noticing the serious expressions on their faces as they spoke quietly. Anxiety crept into her heart. Was something wrong? Had she done something to upset them? Her old fears began to surface, telling her she didn't really belong here. Ethan returned shortly, looking worried. He sat down beside her again, his voice gentle but serious. "Lyra, I need to tell you something important. Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It will be," he assured her, trying to comfort her with a small smile. "But the Vorthian authorities have contacted us. They want you to return." Fear struck Lyra sharply. She shook her head quickly, eyes wide with panic. "No, please, I can't go back there. They don't want me. They never did." "I know," Ethan soothed her calmly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We told them you don't belong to anyone, and that you should choose for yourself. But they aren't happy about that." Lyra stared at Ethan, her heart pounding with fear. "What will happen now?" "We're trying to handle it," Ethan explained carefully. "We won't let anything bad happen to you, I promise. But we need to be prepared. You might have to talk to them yourself to explain what you want." Lyra's chest tightened. The idea of facing the people who had abandoned and hurt her filled her with dread. Ethan saw her fear clearly and gently held her hands. "Listen," he said, softly, his eyes full of encouragement. "You don't have to do it alone. I'll be there with you every step of the way. Everyone here supports you. You're not worthless, and you're not alone anymore." Lyra took a deep, shaky breath. Ethan's words steadied her heart and gave her courage. She realized that even though she was scared, she wasn't the same frightened, helpless girl she had once been. She had changed, becoming stronger and more confident with each passing day. "Okay," she said finally, determination shining through her fear. "If I have to talk to them, I'll do it." Ethan smiled proudly. "That's my brave Lyra." The days that followed were busy and tense. Lyra continued her daily routines, but the anxiety of the upcoming meeting hung over her. Ethan prepared her patiently, teaching her what to say and how to stand firm in her beliefs. Finally, the day came when the representatives from Vorthis arrived. They were stern and cold, their expressions unfriendly. Lyra stood nervously beside Ethan, her heart racing. But as she glanced up and saw Ethan's confident, reassuring expression. She felt her courage strengthen. The representative stared at her with judgmental eyes, clearly expecting her to falter. Instead, she stood tall, her voice clear and steady. "I am not returning," Lyra declared firmly. "I am free, and I choose to stay here, where I am valued and respected." Her bold words surprised the representatives, leaving them speechless for a moment. Ethan smiled, proud of her strength and bravery. Lyra felt a powerful sense of self-worth rise within her, stronger than ever before. She knew now, deep in her heart, that she truly belonged right where she stood, among people who saw her not as worthless, but as precious. After Lyra spoke, silence filled the room. The Vorthian representative stared at her, clearly unsettled by her firm words. Ethan stood quietly beside her, his presence a strong support that gave Lyra courage. Finally, the lead representative stepped forward, a stern expression on his face. "You understand what you're saying?" he asked coldly. "You're choosing these humans over your own people?" Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. "My people never cared about me," she replied. Calmly, her voice clear despite her trembling heart. "These humans have shown me kindness and respect. They have treated me like a person, not something worthless to be thrown away." The representative frowned, clearly annoyed. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this decision." "I won't," Lyra responded, her voice stronger now. "For the first time in my life, I'm making a choice for myself." The representatives exchanged sharp glances, then turned abruptly and left without another word. Lyra let out a shaky breath, her body trembling slightly from the stress. Ethan gently touched her arm, comforting her silently. "You were amazing," he said softly. "You stood your ground and spoke your truth. You should be proud." "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked anxiously. Ethan sighed gently. "They might, but we'll be ready. You won't face this alone." In the days following the tense meeting, life slowly returned to normal at the human base. However, a lingering tension remained, a quiet worry about what the Vorthians might do next. Ethan stayed close to Lyra, always reassuring her and helping her manage her fears. One sunny afternoon, Ethan took Lyra out to the garden, hoping the peaceful setting would soothe her. They worked side by side, planting new seeds and tending the growing plants. The simple, familiar activity brought comfort to Lyra's worried heart. As they worked, Lyra looked up at Ethan, curiosity filling her eyes. "Ethan, why did you come here to Vorthis? You didn't have to. Why would humans risk themselves to help others?" Ethan paused, wiping dirt from his hands. "Because we believe every life has value," he explained gently. "We face challenges of our own, and we've learned the importance of kindness. Helping others makes us stronger." Lyra smiled softly, touched by his sincerity. "I didn't think such kindness existed." Ethan smiled back warmly. "Now you know it does. And you're part of it." Days continued peacefully, but one evening alarms suddenly blared through the human base. Red lights flashed, and a tense voice echoed over the loudspeakers, instructing everyone to gather quickly. Lyra's heart raced as she hurried alongside Ethan to the meeting hall. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Claire stood at the front, her face serious. "We have a problem," she announced. "The Vorthian government has placed sanctions on our mission. They accuse us of kidnapping Lyra." Gasps and worried murmurs filled the room. Ethan stepped forward protectively. "That's ridiculous. Lyra came willingly." "We know," Claire assured him calmly. "But we need to show everyone else the truth. We have to share Lyra's story publicly." All eyes turned to Lyra. Panic rose sharply within her. The idea of speaking openly about her life, of sharing her pain and struggles, was frightening. Ethan gently took her hand, silently offering his. "Strength. You don't have to do it if you don't want to," Claire said gently. "But it might help everyone understand the truth." Lyra hesitated, her mind swirling with fear and doubt. But as she looked around at the humans who had given her a home, kindness, and respect, her fear slowly faded. They had fought for her. Now she would fight for them. "I'll do it," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the pounding in her heart. Preparations began quickly. Ethan helped Lyra gather her thoughts and feelings, encouraging her every step of the way. Finally, the day arrived when she stood in front of a camera, her story ready to be shared with many planets watching. Lyra took a deep breath, looking into the camera. "My name is Lyra," she began, her voice clear but gentle. "I grew up believing I was worthless, unwanted, dirty. But these humans saw something different in me. They showed me that I had value, dignity, and a right to kindness. I chose to stay with them because, for the first time, I knew what it meant to be respected." She spoke honestly, her voice filled with emotion, and by the end, tears shone brightly in her eyes. Ethan stood close by, watching her proudly. Lyra had taken a powerful step, standing up not only for herself but for every being who had ever felt forgotten and unwanted. She had found her voice, and it was stronger than she had ever imagined. Lyra's message quickly spread throughout the galaxy. Many worlds watched her speak, moved deeply by her honest words. Soon, messages of support and encouragement poured into the human base from planets far and wide. For the first time, Lyra realized her story wasn't just her own. It was touching hearts everywhere. However, the Vorthian government was furious. They tried to discredit Lyra, calling her a liar and accusing the humans of manipulating her. Yet the more they tried to silence her, the stronger support for Lyra grew. News organizations requested interviews, and people across different worlds expressed their support publicly, challenging Vorthis' harsh treatment of its citizens. Ethan stood by Lyra throughout this time, never leaving her side. Together, they faced every challenge, finding strength in their shared purpose. They attended meetings and gave interviews, steadily raising awareness about the conditions many faced on Vorthis. With each appearance, Lyra's confidence grew. Her words were clear and powerful, touching countless hearts. One evening after a long day of interviews, Ethan and Lyra sat quietly together in the garden. Stars glittered gently above them, and a cool breeze softly moved through the plants around them. "Did you ever imagine your life would become like this?" Ethan asked softly, breaking the comfortable silence. Lyra shook her head, her eyes reflecting deep thoughts. "Never. I used to believe my life meant nothing. But now it feels like everything has a purpose." Ethan smiled warmly. "You've become an inspiration to many. Your bravery and honesty have shown everyone how valuable you truly are." Lyra looked at Ethan gratefully. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You were the first one to show me I had worth. All I did was remind you of the truth," Ethan replied gently. "You always had worth. You just needed to believe it yourself." Days turned into weeks, and support for Lyra and the human mission continued to grow. Even some Vorthians started speaking openly, sharing their own stories of hardship and calling for change. Pressure built on the Vorthian government to address the issues openly, as neighboring planets demanded accountability. One morning, the human base received an unexpected communication. It was an official message from the Intergalactic Council, inviting Lyra and Ethan to speak at a formal hearing. The council wanted to investigate the situation on Vorthis and decide on potential actions. Excitement and nervousness filled Lyra as she read the invitation. Ethan stood by her side, a reassuring presence. "This is your chance," Ethan encouraged her. "You can share your message with people who can truly make a difference. You think they'll listen?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with hope and uncertainty. "They already are," Ethan said confidently. "Your story has touched them deeply." As the day of the hearing approached, Lyra prepared diligently, determined to use this opportunity to make real change. Ethan guided her gently, reminding her often of her strength and courage. Finally, the day arrived. They traveled to the Grand Hall of the Intergalactic Council, a stunning place filled with representatives from countless worlds. Lyra's heart raced as she stood before them, feeling the weight of the moment. Yet As she began to speak, her fears faded. "My name is Lyra," she said clearly, her voice steady and strong. "I represent not only myself, but many others who have faced hardship, neglect, and cruelty." She recounted her story openly, describing her struggles, her discovery by Ethan, and the kindness she found with the humans. She spoke of the suffering of many on Vortis, the injustices they endured, and the desperate need for change. "Every life deserves respect," she concluded passionately. "No one is worthless, no one is dirty. We all deserve kindness and dignity." As her voice fell silent, the entire hall erupted in applause, representatives from worlds far and wide rising in support. Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she turned to see Ethan smiling proudly, clapping loudly with everyone else. The council promised swift action, launching an investigation into the abuses on Vortis. Lyra felt overwhelming relief and joy, knowing that her courage had sparked real change. That night, standing beneath the stars once more, Lyra felt true peace for the first time. Her journey had been difficult, but she had transformed from feeling worthless to becoming someone who inspired others. She looked at Ethan, gratitude and warmth filling her heart. "Thank you," she whispered sincerely, "for lifting me up, for showing me that I mattered." Ethan gently took her hand. "You lifted yourself, Lyra. You've always been golden. I just helped you see it." Together, under the peaceful night sky, they stood quietly, knowing their lives had changed forever. Lyra was no longer dirty or worthless. She was valuable, strong, and respected, finally seen by everyone, including herself, for the precious being she truly was. After the council meeting, life changed rapidly for Lyra and Ethan. Support poured in from all corners of the galaxy, turning the human base into a busy center of activity. Messages and visits from various worlds filled their days, each offering encouragement and assistance. Most importantly, an official investigation into the conditions on Vortis had begun. The council sent representatives to the planet to gather evidence and speak with its citizens. Lyra and Ethan closely followed each development, hoping deeply for real change. Despite their busy schedule, Ethan always made time for Lyra. They continued their morning walks, enjoying peaceful moments amid the chaos. One bright morning, as they walked through the blooming garden, Ethan paused thoughtfully. "How do you feel about returning to Vortis?" he asked carefully. "Not forever, but to help the investigators. Your voice would mean a lot to your people." Lyra hesitated, memories of her painful past flooding back. Fear tightened her chest, but she took a slow breath and looked at Ethan's calm, reassuring face. "If it helps others, then I'll do it," she finally replied softly. "But only if you come with me?" Ethan smiled warmly. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Preparations for their journey began immediately. Claire, who had become a close friend, helped organize everything carefully. On the day of departure, everyone gathered to wish them luck. Hugs, smiles, and kind words surrounded Lyra, strengthening her courage. The flight to Vortis was smooth but quiet. Lyra watched silently from the window as her home planet grew larger, memories and feelings swirling within her. Ethan sat beside her, quietly supportive, sensing her emotions without needing words. Upon landing, the investigation team met them. They immediately started work, interviewing residents and documenting conditions. Lyra guided them through her old neighborhood, pointing out places of struggle and neglect she knew all too well as they walked the familiar streets. Some residents recognized Lyra, approaching hesitantly. They spoke softly, thanking her for speaking out and giving them hope. Each encounter warmed her heart, reinforcing her purpose. At the end of a long day, Lyra led Ethan to the alley where he had first found her. Standing there, memories rushed back sharply, filling her with sadness but also gratitude. "This is where my new life began," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "Right here, where you found me." Ethan gently squeezed her hand. "You found yourself too, Lyra. You found your voice, your strength. I just showed you kindness." Lyra smiled softly, feeling tears welling up. You gave me everything, Ethan. You showed me how to see myself differently. Days passed swiftly as the team continued their work. Soon, they had gathered more than enough evidence to present their findings to the Intergalactic Council. Each day brought new stories of hope and courage from the people of Vorthis. Inspired by Lyra's bravery, finally the investigation was complete and it was time to leave. As their ship prepared to depart, a group of Vorthians gathered at the landing area. They cheered for Lyra, clapping and thanking her loudly for standing up for them. Tears streamed down Lyra's face as she waved goodbye, deeply moved by the outpouring of appreciation. Ethan stood beside her, proud and supportive. "See, you really did change things," he said gently. The journey back to the human base was filled with quiet joy. Upon arrival, news quickly reached them that the Intergalactic Council had decided on strong measures against the Vortian government. Major reforms would be enforced, ensuring dignity, fairness, and respect for all citizens. Lyra felt overwhelmed by happiness and relief. Her struggles had truly made a difference, and life on Vorthis would finally improve. The once-forgotten, abandoned girl had helped create lasting change. That evening, under the soft glow of stars, Ethan and Lyra stood quietly in their favorite garden spot. The peaceful night around them felt like a comforting embrace, celebrating their achievements. "Do you think everything will really get better?" Lyra asked softly, her voice hopeful. "Yes," Ethan answered confidently. "And it's all because you were brave enough to speak up." Lyra leaned into Ethan's comforting presence, feeling gratitude deep within her. She knew she would always carry the scars of her past, but now those scars symbolized strength rather than pain. Her journey had transformed her, lifting her from despair to hope. Standing there quietly, Lyra felt a profound sense of peace and pride. She had faced her fears, confronted her past, and emerged stronger. Ethan had helped her see her true worth, and now the whole galaxy knew it too. She smiled softly, feeling, for the first time, completely free. Life at the human base gradually settled into a comfortable rhythm after their return from Vorthis. Lyra felt deeply satisfied, knowing her voice had brought meaningful changes to her home planet. Yet, she still felt a lingering sense of uncertainty about her future. One calm evening, as the sun gently set, casting golden light across the sky, Ethan approached her with a gentle smile. "Lyra," he began softly, "there's something important I'd like to discuss with you." Her heart quickened, slightly, curiosity mixing with a touch of anxiety. "What is it?" "The council has offered you a position," Ethan explained carefully. "They want you to become an official advocate for change. You'd speak for beings across the galaxy who have been overlooked or mistreated." Lyra stared at him in surprise. She had never imagined such a significant role could be hers. The thought of taking on such responsibility made her chest tighten, but also filled her with excitement. "Do you think I could really do that?" she asked, her voice quiet and hesitant. "I believe you can," Ethan responded with conviction. "You've already proven how much your voice matters. You inspire others. You've shown that everyone deserves kindness and respect." Lyra looked away, thoughtful for a moment. Then she nodded, slowly, determination lighting up her eyes. "I'll do it. If it helps others, then it's worth every bit of effort." A bright, proud smile appeared on Ethan's face. "I knew you'd say that." The following weeks became busy once again. Lyra attended meetings, spoke with various groups, and prepared for her new responsibilities. Ethan remained her constant support, always guiding her gently and offering encouragement when needed. Her first official appearance as an advocate arrived quickly. Standing before a large gathering, cameras and eager faces focused on her. Lyra felt a flutter of nerves. But when she saw Ethan's reassuring smile in the crowd, calmness settled over her. "My name is Lyra," she began confidently. "I stand here today because I believe that every being, no matter who they are or where they come from, deserves respect and compassion. I once thought I was worthless, but I discovered my worth because someone believed in me. Now, I promise, to help others find their voice too. Applause filled the room, the warmth and appreciation of the crowd overwhelming her. Tears gently blurred her vision, but she smiled brightly. Her heart felt full, finally understanding her true purpose. Afterward, many approached her, offering thanks and sharing their stories. Each interaction reaffirmed her choice. As the event ended, Ethan met her with open arms. "You were incredible," he praised softly. "You inspired everyone here." "I couldn't have done it without you," Lyra admitted, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You did it yourself," Ethan reminded her warmly. "All I did was help you see what was already there." Months passed, and Lyra's work brought meaningful improvements to countless lives. She traveled frequently, visiting planets and communities, spreading her message of hope and kindness. Ethan often traveled with her, always supportive, proud, and encouraging. One quiet night, back at their peaceful human base, Lyra sat outside beneath the stars, reflecting on everything that had happened. Ethan joined her, sitting comfortably beside her. "Look how far you've come," he said gently, breaking the silence. "Did you ever imagine this for your life?" Lyra shook her head slowly, her eyes thoughtful. "Never. I used to feel completely worthless. But now everything feels so different. It feels meaningful." Ethan smiled softly. "You're the reason your life changed, Lyra. You found your own worth." She looked at him, deeply grateful. "You lifted me when no one else cared." "Because everyone deserves to be lifted," Ethan replied sincerely. "And now you're doing that for countless others." Warmth spread through Lyra's heart as they sat quietly, the peaceful night surrounding them like a comforting embrace. She felt proud, fulfilled, and deeply grateful for the journey she had taken. She had faced her darkest fears, overcome immense challenges, and emerged stronger, wiser, and kinder. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion, "I could never thank you enough." He gently squeezed her hand, his expression warm and sincere. "You don't have to thank me. Your happiness is all the thanks I need." Together, they gazed upward, watching stars twinkle gently in the sky, symbols of endless possibilities and hope. Lyra understood clearly that her journey was far from over. It had just begun. From feeling dirty and worthless, she had risen like gold, shining brightly, inspiring everyone around her. And as she sat with Ethan under the peaceful night sky, she knew that no matter what the future held, she would continue lifting others just as Ethan had lifted her.